Next up, we have Ajay Kapoor from P&G. Ajay is a four or five-time entrepreneur. Four? Four. It's a lot. Four is enough. Four-time entrepreneur, joined P&G 4 years ago. Am I getting this backwards? And also Michael Learmonth from International Business Times. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you? I think the rule is if you win one, you have to wear it home, or at least wear it back to the office.
Don't you want one?
I do want one.
It is amazing.
I don't think I'm eligible though.
Walk around New York City with that on?
I think it would go big, go over big.
Absolutely.
So this is going to be kind of a speed round. We have 15 minutes here with Ajay Kapoor. He's a representative of the biggest marketer in the world. I'm sure you all know. Tide, Bounty, Pantene. So why don't we start off, just tell us what you do.
Yes. So I oversee our digital strategy at P&G, both from how do we do the creative scalably to how do we deploy it, and then how do we measure it on the tail end. And then I have responsibility over a newly found group that focuses on our consumer big data. So as I described to you, as a manufacturer, I actually care about what you prefer, the colors you care about, the scents that make you happier through the Tide or the Bounceables or any of the products that we have, but I don't really have a clear line of sight to you. So, years ago, 1920s, 30s, we started a market research capability, surveying a bunch of folks across the world, and we've continued to progress that. But in the 21st century, with all this digital connectivity and computing power, how we start meshing together all of the information that we purchase is really, really important, both from a sales standpoint, a consumer listing standpoint, any of the surveys or quantitative work that we do across the world. How do we bring that together to get a better understanding of our marketplace and our consumer so we can further distill our opportunity areas and new products that we should be hitting them with? And then on top of that, better informing our communication or marketing strategy.
Can you describe the sources of data that you have? Obviously, market research over many, many years. You're getting data from your retail partners. Presumably you're selling directly, right? Can you just sort of map that out for us?
Yeah, it's immense, right? And starting at the top of the funnel, we know what we produce. So we have our internal shipment tracking. Layer on top of that, we purchase a ton of information from Nielsen, Kantar, and many of those retail purveyors of information. So what's happening at a scanner, so consumption data as a whole. We also purchase items like household panel, where individuals have these markers within their house, and they scan everything that they buy and purchase. So we understand from a demographic standpoint, within the United States, what is the average household purchasing? What are they switching from? Any of those interactions that are happening. We focus on Nielsen set-top boxes to understand how our media is doing. We're socially listening. I should give a broad perspective, throw in all the new variants of information that exists out there, from social listening to credit card data to so on and so forth, that have become a bit more accessible through new technology. We're looking at how we best integrate that and better have a 360-degree view of our marketplace and our consumer.
Can you walk us through some of the local initiatives that you're doing at retail and just reaching out to people through their phones or just as they're walking into stores?
Yeah, so fascinating question, right? So my role is global, and I can talk about developed markets, what's probably a bit more prevalent in the United States, all the way down to some of the stuff that we do in India and Brazil and elsewhere. And I'll start off with a quick story about what we do in India. So one of the activations and initiatives that we did was, as you think about mobile, and we always think about these smartphones, these remote controls that have access to everything and information across, products or anything that I would need to purchase, or just being connected to my friends and family. In many places in our developing markets, that's just not the case, right? And they have a bunch of feature phones. And then on top of that, they're buying minutes to use those feature phones. And so we've done some really interesting marketing activities at a very, very hyper-local level in some of these rural communities across the world, where we'll incentivize an individual to do an activity called a missed call. So they'll call a number, we'll credit them, minutes onto their phone, and what they have to do is they'll listen to some music or some sort of entertainment or commercial, and then learn a bit about our products. And that's pretty much it. And the incentive there is for them to have a better exposure to some of the things that we're doing on those grounds.
So they actually you actually pay them on their phone, is that?
Yeah, absolutely, right? And so the value, what we focus on is how do you provide the most amount of value to your consumer, and how do you build those relationships as best as possible. So instead of a push, we're trying to provide or create a pull mechanism where consumers have a choice to say, I want to opt into this. I'm interested in what you'll provide me. I'm interested in learning about your product, and I'm interested in the entertainment that's going to come with it.
Okay, I want to back up a minute. Just want to read you back a quote from your CEO, Ajay Lafley. He had a tough quarter, and it was announced that he's trimming the agency roster, cutting way back. And he said, "We're simply shutting down the unproductive, non-working dollars, and we're converting it to working, and we're getting a heck of a lot more out of our digital, mobile, search, and social programs." Mm-hmm. Can you sort of tell us what he meant by that and what's changing?
Yeah, so sadly, AG doesn't come to me for advice, but I'll attempt to provide perspective as best as possible. Simply put, P&G has been the largest marketer, as you said. We know how to do TV really well, right? I know how to get on TV, persuade consumers, create demand creation, drive visibility of our products, brands, and portfolio. As we move into a society that's 100% digital, in many cases, many of these folks have cut the cord to their televisions, to cable. We're trying to figure out how we do that scalably and effectively. And I think what we realized was we were spending, the equivalent, I think AG's quote is the equivalent of 3 Spider-Man movies each year just on TV ad copy, right? And so was that an efficient use of working dollars? I think what we're realizing is the mix of where we're deploying our capital from a marketing spend standpoint has to change and has to be a bit more agile into the digital realm, and has to be a bit more effective there.
But doesn't the content have to get better, right? Because even if that ad is running on an over-the-top box or on a phone, people are choosing, right? You have to ask people to choose to watch something. It's not just push, right? So doesn't the content have to get better?
Yeah, it's super prevalent with the whole ad blocker conversation, right? And I think the onus is upon us, the agencies, the marketers, to better understand what our consumers care about in their day-to-day lives and how we can best market within those confines. So what is the right creative at the right time, at the right place? There's a deployment aspect, there's a targeting aspect, and then the front end of that is ensuring that the creative is ideally good enough to break through, right? And I think we're still going through that learning journey of understanding how you do that effectively on mobile, how you do that effectively on a computer, and how do you continue to do that very well on television.
If we're saying that money is shifting away from TV creative, maybe you'll do one less Spider-Man movie a year. Where is that money going, and where do you see the big investments?
Yeah, I think, most major CPG companies are repurposing a lot of those dollars to be more effective in the digital realm. And I think when we think about the digital realm, I'll break down a very quick framework. There's an aspect of how I think of it as reminding a consumer about your product exists, and then there's persuading. I have a new product, I have a new brand that just came out, I need to do some education. TV is really good at that latter box, right? I can show a product demo, you're seeing a video about it. In many cases, the way that we were doing digital in the past, they were banner ads, right? And if you think about what a banner ad is like, I exist, let me pop up, and then let me go away, right? Wasn't doing a really good job of persuading. I think we're trying to be better at that persuasion aspect online. And how do you do that? That's pre-roll videos, that's maybe more compelling content. Those are the things that I think we're still working through with our agency partners.
So question about this. Can the phone persuade? that tiny screen, can you change someone's mind or create demand through the phone?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we were talking about behind in the green room was, end of the day, a consumer has a need or a want or a desire that needs to be fulfilled, right? And ideally, we're at the right place at the right time to be able to provide the consumer the choice and the education to choose the best product that's in front of them for their needs and wants. And so I think there's certain things from a very basic optimization standpoint in that stance of when they're at shelf, are you showing up when they're doing price searches, right? If they're within a particular retailer, are you able to provide a bit more information or concept, or in essence, maybe even hyperlocal target an ad to them to say, hey, we exist, you may need some Tide, how about you pick us up, right? And I think we're still trying to work through how do you do that at such a granular level at the scale that we need to do it at, and do that very consistently and effectively globally.
Can you just describe what you know about your consumer when they're in the stores with their phones? What are they doing when they're shopping for hair care or detergent?
Yeah, so tough question, right? A lot of our techniques and methodologies are we watch shoppers do this, right? We follow them and watch them shop the aisles. The things we know from a quantitative standpoint from some of the research that we've done or our research partners have done is that in general, the CPG category, 60% of consumers have their smartphone out in the United States at shelf. It changes, it varies if you're a technology-based shelf or if you're just simply a laundry detergent shelf. But consumers are out there, they're price checking, they're price testing, they're trying to educate themselves on the different products that they're looking at. We know that those are aspects and behaviors that are changing. We also know that there's this new drive of convenience, right? And convenience taken to a whole different level. It's not just simply having a retail store close by. It's now the advent of Amazon Prime or Uber or whatever that may be, of how do you bring convenience and provide the needs and goods of what the consumer is looking for at the right place at the right time with the least amount of friction. We're working with our retail partners to do that as effectively as possible.
So how committed are you, is P&G, to direct to consumer, right? You've got some nimble competitors like Dollar Shave Club, and do you see yourselves launching more e-commerce businesses?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to look through that and understand the value benefit around there. I think what we've learned and realized is that our retail partners are huge benefits to our business. We have such a strong partnership, and the realization is, look, over 40% of households in the United States are still shopping at Walmart, right? And you have to figure out how to win there as well as in the online digital realm. Can we do that effectively with our retail partners? We absolutely believe we can. Do we think that there are other product offerings to be able to provide our consumer a holistic experience? For sure. And I think we're going to continue to have those conversations strategically where it makes the most sense. Recently we launched Gillette Shave Club, which has integrations into all of our major retail partners as well as our own direct-to-consumer offering, right? And so the goal is to provide our consumer with the most amount of choice and selection for them to choose where they would like to go and shop at.
So you saw Walmart this last week reported some pretty bad earnings and some, pretty weak forecast going forward. Does that cause any heartburn at P&G? I mean, e-commerce has been sort of like pointed to as a possible factor in that. How does that inform your thinking?
Yeah, I think, we as an industry, the CPG industry and the retail industry have to continue to accelerate our growth curve and our abilities in the digital realm. And I believe, part of the announcement with Walmart was their pledge of over $1 billion to fortify their e-commerce offering. I think it's really interesting when we look forward, 3 to 5 years from now of how these retail players and e-commerce players are going to kind of converge upon each other, right? And we're already seeing that. If I can look at like a Warby Parker, they're looking at physical stores. There's still an experience around that store aspect that we believe our retail partners do phenomenally well. We can obviously continue to grow there. I think our retailers are going to continue to go through this journey as we are to ensure that our consumers are getting the best experience.
Cool. Well, we're going to get a special belt for ending right on time.
Yes, perfect.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thanks so much.